Hello, my name is Michele, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. Joining me on the podcast today is Kara Cox of Kara Cox Interiors. I've just got to tell you, this was such a fun and a delightful conversation. It is recorded in mid-April while we're still in the middle of kind of figuring out what all COVID is going to look like and this disruption and how things are going to start back. What I love so much is Kara's opening and inviting personality, and she just draws you in. She has that beautiful southern beach, and I just loved it so much. The thing that also struck me, and you're going to hear about it in here, as there was something that just really got my attention, a couple of things. One was the idea of how beautifully she was mentored and taken care of by another designer who then also encouraged her to launch her own design firm. And that's not what we hear very often. And so listening to her share that story and that sweet relationship was just such an encouragement. On top of that, Kara goes on to talk about how she has worked really hard to figure out how she serves others, not only her staff and her clients, but her community. So I think you're going to be really encouraged by that. And I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Kara, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Michele.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, we were having such an awesome conversation prior to hitting record. I realized if I didn't hit record, we'd have the whole podcast. And
I know.
To do it. So I am so glad that you're here. And I was sharing with you even before we came on, if anybody has not looked at your website, they have got to go see it. I've got to throw it out at the beginning, not just at the end. But it's Kara Cox Interiors, and it is just so beautiful. Your designs inspire me and they make me smile. And I see a lot of beautiful things, as certainly you and everybody else does, but just your picture out there and the work that you've done and just the way that it slides through, I could almost just keep it up on my second screen throughout the day.
That's our goal, is to inspire people and to just give them a beautiful home to come home to that's comforting and reflects their personality. So we're really proud of the work we do and the fact that there are elements that flow through all of our projects, but we do really unique designs for each client and what they're asking specifically for in their homes.
Well, that's the kind of design that I love. I'm not big on formulaic anything. That's why even as a coach, I say to people, there's certain principles that are good for business and I will help you put those in. But my goal is to help you build the business you want to build and the unique way you want to do it. And so I love when design is an expression of the people that live there. And it doesn't look like, again, like it was cultivated from a magazine, meaning
Right.
like here's the front of a local store. Let's just replicate that. And
right.
And
we like to think of it like our filter that we're applying to their aesthetic.
That's right. Absolutely. So I would love to hear, we were just starting to have the conversation before we kind of caught ourselves and thought, oh, let's get on the air. I'd love to hear how you got started in design and how you got started in all of this. You were going all the way back to like, what age 14 or something?
Well, really more college. So my first degree is from UNC Chapel Hill in journalism and had an advertising focus in that degree. I thought I was going to go take on the fashion world. That was my goal. So left college and went straight to New York City, did a postgraduate training program with Saks Fifth Avenue. I was big city girl, out of here, small town North Carolina, goodbye, not coming back. But I had a boyfriend at the time, now he's my husband, who had a family business in North Carolina, and he ended up bringing me back to North Carolina after my time in New York.
Of course he did.
Of course, yes. So it's a good reason to move back. It's worked out well. We've been married 16 years now. So when I was 22, I grew up with parents who were professionals. So my dad was a doctor and my mom was a career counselor. And So we were always charged with how we could be in service to others as a family. And what were you going to do for the world? And my mom really struggled with the fact that I was going into fashion. She just thought it was a frivolous career. How were you going to do good in the world? I also think there was a little fear. I moved to New York in 2002, so right after 9/11. And, her baby is going off to New York City. And
you're young and
I
female.
was young.
I mean, all
Yes.
these things.
Absolutely. And it was a risk that she hadn't taken in her own life. And so to see her child go off and do that, I think it was scary. And they did not hold me back, which was, I think, such a gift that my parents gave me. They were always, you can do whatever you want to do, set your sights high.
You know what's so interesting? So I graduated from college at the University of South Carolina, so state right below you. And at 21, I got in the car and accepted a job in Atlanta, which was the southern big city, and moved here by myself. And my parents had always grown up in the same town, lived in the same town, and been parents in the 60s and 70s. So everything was a little bit more, you take a job and then you retire from the job with your pension. And so it was quite a shock to them that I, at 21, got up and walked away by myself to go to the big city. About that, very similar to the way your parents felt, almost like they were excited for me, they cheered me on. But my mother told me she spent so much time on her knees in prayer over me because they were scared to death for me to be here by myself. And I didn't have the fear. I didn't see, some of it was just age, and some of
young
it
and fearless, right? Yes.
Fearless in your 20s. And now I'm a parent of 20-year-olds, and I'm over here understanding why my mother said she was on her knees a lot.
Right.
They don't have fear like we have. But there were so many good things that come out of that. So tell us, what are all the good things for you? I mean, Saks, good grief, that's awesome.
It was. And, it just opened my eyes. I had been able to travel and study abroad in college. So I spent a semester in Florence, which really opened my eyes aesthetically. And I think that's when I really opened up to realizing I wanted to be a creative. And that was different for everyone in my family. I have an older brother who's a corporate attorney. My parents both were professionals. They did not push me towards a creative career. And so I had to figure out for a few years what that looked like. So when I moved back from New York to North Carolina, there's obviously not a large fashion industry in North Carolina. And I started to think, what am I going to do with this knowledge and this experience I've had that allows me to be creative? So I ended up working in a furniture manufacturing company, Klausner Furniture, for about a year when I first moved back to North Carolina. And I was doing fabric purchasing. And at the time, it was really more financially driven and not as creative as I would like. So I left there and became an editor for Home Accents Today. So I was falling back on the first degree I had in journalism. And through that experience, I was able to travel to all of the furniture markets nationally and even some international trade shows. So I was exposed to so many products, so many vendors, and that first trip to High Point Market, Atlanta Market, Dallas Lighting Show was just exposed in those 2 years to the industry that I fell in love with. So I realized during that time of traveling and creating relationships with vendors in furniture industry that I really wanted to be doing the creative work, and I didn't want to be writing about it. So I learned great skills with trend forecasting as a product editor. I learned great product knowledge and can still look at a piece of furniture or an accessory and name the manufacturer because I became so familiar with their products in that time frame. But I ended up having my first child fairly early, and I decided when she was born that the travel was too much for me to keep up, and I went back to school for a design degree. So with a 1-year-old, I went back to get a design degree and did a 2-year program that was really technical training, which was what I felt like I needed to have the knowledge to start a business at some point. But I had already I developed my aesthetic on my own. So I ended up going to work for a designer in Greensboro who was absolutely phenomenal. Her name was Lindsay Henderson. She is still in business. Now she's in Charleston and semi-retired. But she was the most amazing mentor to me and allowed me to learn from her. She taught me the business side. She exposed me to new sources, new ways of designing that I had never been able to experience in a hands-on environment. And she is known for training people really well. She's had very successful designers come out of her firm and is just the most open and giving mentor. And so she really set me up to be successful on my own. And ironically, I was working for her from about 2008 to 2010. So in the time where we had a massive financial crisis, business was drying up, she was an interior designer who had such large projects going on for her clients that they carried her through that time. And we were doing a lot of construction projects at the time. But in 2010, that's when it really hit North Carolina a little bit later, and it hit the furniture industry a little bit later here. So her business started to become slower, and I had a second child at that time and decided to go out on my own and start my own business. And she really pushed me from the nest. I mean, she said to me, "You're ready. You need to go do this on your own." And I didn't think I was ready. I was like, "No, please let me stay. I don't want to do this on my own." I knew it was going to be a lot of hard work, but it was a good transition time for me when I had my second child. So I left her firm, started my own.
Right there for a second?
Sure.
I just want to celebrate her for a minute. Right?
She's amazing.
She is amazing. And her attitude is amazing. And the reason I want to do that, Kara, is because in our industry, we can, if we're not careful, be so focused on getting our own that we're not helping those around us succeed. And it sounds like by you saying she didn't just mentor you, she mentored many designers that came through her program. She, in my mind, had very much such a servant heart and this idea of helping you become the best you could be. You know, I always say we need to find somebody who sees what's in us, even if we don't see it. And it sounds like she was one of those people in your life. She saw what you could be and what you could do. And like you said, pushed you out of the nest. And
absolutely, she really was
beautiful.
She changed my life. She really did.
Yeah.
And she was so open and giving, even after I left her firm, to say, "Hey, if you need to come use my fabric library, you know, keep your key and come in and get whatever you need." It was a resource. If I had a question or I didn't know how to do something, I could call her, and we still had lunch and we stayed in touch, and we still do. She's now in Charleston, so I don't get to see her as often, but
you do recognize what a big gift.
Absolutely.
Right? I know you do. I mean,
absolutely.
And here's what I want to challenge the listeners here is be that for somebody.
Right.
Right. I'm not talking about feeling like somebody's taking from you all the time. And I'm not saying that she didn't do it for every single person she met, but she did have those select few that worked with her, worked for her, worked in some capacity, and she didn't hold back. She poured into them to make them the best they could be, knowing in my mind that if she kicked you out of the nest, it's because you were ready and she was willing if she had a need to bring in somebody else and train them up.
Absolutely. And no fear of competition. No fear of,
because there's enough.
Absolutely. And she had such an amazing business, and she's so talented aesthetically. Her design is so beautiful.
Such a model that I am literally almost stunned because I have conversations quite often with people who will say, "Well, nobody will help me," or "Nobody will talk to me," or "In my area, all the designers are closed." I mean, we're certainly getting more open in online forums and in, Facebook groups, right, and things like that, going to market and doing things. We're sharing more. But I even know there are designers who are like, "I'm not telling you where I got this table because this is my table and my aesthetic." I've never heard of anything so stupid in my whole life, only because all you're doing is hurting that company.
Right.
So that they can't sell enough of those tables.
And she just had that confidence. She had the confidence that her designs were so unique and so specific to her clients that no one was going to replicate that. And so there was no fear in sharing her tricks and her knowledge with someone. She really was such a gift.
And it also makes me think about when you said a minute ago how your parents wanted you to think about serving. So to put you under a mentor who literally served her clients and her community and then served her employees, the servant leadership that she showed to those that worked for her really probably helped define the way that you serve and lead now in your own company that you were saying you started in 2010. So pick back up and tell us where you started. And then I would love to hear, I know this wasn't in any question that I asked you, but how you've taken her idea of servant leader to you and then put it back into business for those that report to you and that work with you.
Right.
Because I know you did.
Well, I think that is what I've been in business now 10 years, and it's taken me probably 8 or 9 to answer that question that my mom put to me at 22 of how are you going to help the world? What good are you doing in the world if you go into this aesthetic career? How is this helping people? And I have finally become so confident in that answer, and it has taken me a long time. We don't realize the impact that our words to our children have. And I think of that all the time as a mother because I do have 2 kids. I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. And so I think of the things I'm teaching them, the things I'm sharing, and with my employees as well. And I have realized that I have been led with the clients I have, the projects I've taken on in ways that I can exemplify service to others. And it is such an important part of my business model. In my bio on my website, I say that I'm really a people person first, and I'm a designer by trade because I realize that I've been given a gift of relationship and being able to develop friendships and relationships with my clients. It is the most important part of my business. And so with that, I want to do the best job. I want to be in service to them. I want to blow their socks off with just exceeding their expectations in every way, both in the design work, but also in the service that we provide to our clients.
Before we came on, you and I were having a little bit of that conversation. And that's exactly the way that I approach my business. I always say I'm going to serve their socks off and I'm going to give them more than they could ask or imagine. Like I want it to be an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. I don't ever want a client to work with me and think, wow, Michele held back and didn't give her best or didn't give her all. I want them to think, oh my gosh, I got more than I thought I would get or more than I paid for, or she supported me or did whatever. And I think that's why I was so attracted to your site and to your words and to what you said, is because that why and that set of values, like I immediately picked up on that before you and I even got on the conversation. Like I knew, I felt it. And I think that speaks a lot to the way that you have articulated on your site. Simply because if we think about this, right, all of our messaging, all of our words, I remember from a young age thinking to myself with my kids, my words have life or death. All of our words are life or death. We're either going to crush somebody. Like I could crush somebody with my words as easily as I could choose to bless them with my words.
Absolutely.
And so I can encourage and empower, or I can trash them. And so we have a choice all the time in what we say and how we say it and what we do. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I mean, I can mess up just like the best person, but it's about being intentional with the choices of words that we use. And so when we do our marketing and our messaging, if our values are like what your values are and what my values are, the more that we talk it and the more that we say it and the more that we live it and the more that we do it, then our clients are automatically drawn. I think that's probably one of the things your mentor knew. These were her values, and she put them out there so much that the right people to work with her were going to be drawn to her. And she was okay with Kara being Kara because what you put out is going to draw the right people to you. And this is what we all do, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she's been so great to just even check in over the years and say, I'm so proud of you. So happy to see your success and what you're doing. And to have that cheerleader in your corner is so meaningful. Mm-hmm. And so I do try to think about that as I lead my team as well. And I've done a lot of study in the Enneagram, your motivations and how to motivate people. And
so what Enneagram number are you?
Oh, I'm a 1. Okay. I'm a take charge kind of girl.
Okay, so it's so funny. I've probably taken it 3 times. I think I'm a 3, but I have a heck of a lot of tendencies to a 1. I just
Yes.
don't quite have the perfectionism to the point that it is stifling to me. I
Yes.
like things to be right. I edited a magazine and published one for 4 years. So
Okay.
I literally am talking to my client yesterday. I'm like, oh, you have a misspelled word on your website. I
Mm.
mean, we weren't even looking at that. But I email people sometimes and I go, I'm trying to help you, but there's some misspellings on your website and like they drive me crazy.
Oh, I know.
I wouldn't
That
do it in
journalism degree comes in handy.
it does. It does. I mean, I've got, the books behind me on this method and that method. And I'm looking for, do I want that Oxford comma? And just
I
crazy
know.
stuff.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
know I can drive people crazy with that. But yeah, the Enneagram's pretty cool to figure out.
It is cool. And I just think the more we learn about ourselves, the more we learn about the people that we work with on a daily basis and our team, the better we can meet their needs and figure out how to motivate the individual, which may be different than our motivations.
Absolutely.
So, as a perfectionist, I strive to go above and beyond. And sometimes to the point where it's detrimental to me or my
Right.
family's health because I'm putting my clients first.
Right.
And actually, I think the last few weeks have been interesting to me because I've had more time to be with my kids and be at home and think about how I can serve them in addition to serving my clients, and that maybe I need to put a little more effort into that. So, but I do feel like what has made me successful in business has been that strive for relationship and to service my clients in a way that they really leave with an amazing experience.
So let me ask this. I know that from our quick conversation before, I mean, we're filming this in the time of COVID, just in
Sure.
case, it's always good to have a reference point about where we are when we're talking. But and I know that you were very successful today, and you mentioned that you have some projects that are able to pull you through this because they were larger construction projects. But when you started at the very beginning in 2010, building your own company, did you create a full-blown business plan? Or was it a little bit more loosey-goosey to get? I'm not suggesting that it wasn't with forethought, but
Right.
was it a little more relaxed maybe with
It
how you got
definitely was
started?
more relaxed. I don't have a business degree. So I did not have a business structure. I am married to an entrepreneur, which is great, and he's the third generation business owner. So I did have his help in structuring my business and looking at how to grow it, how to market it. And honestly, my advertising degree came in handy. So I was able to market myself. I've not had to outsource the marketing or the advertising part of my business. But I started slow, part time. I had a 4-year-old and an infant. And so it was from my guest bedroom for several years. And then I moved into a teeny tiny office that I think was literally 100 square feet. It was basically an escape from
Out of the
toddlers.
house. Yep.
Yes. It allowed me to just get a few hours of work in while they were at preschool or in the afternoons and not have to be changing diapers at the same time. I started very small and I've had 3 offices out of the home now and continue to kind of move to larger spaces and meet my needs slowly and grow strategically as I was able to finance that. I've been really proud of not ever taking a business loan or having business debt. So I have grown in a smaller way as I could. So as I was able to pay for things, I would take the next step forward in my business. And sometimes that's good or bad. Like there are things that you want to inject money into if you're looking at a really faster growth strategy. But for me, with the age of my children and knowing that I needed to balance that family life, a slower growth pattern was better for my business. And so I'm now in a position where I have 2 staff people. I have an office manager and I have a junior designer. And I have a beautiful studio outside of my home that we moved into about a year ago. We're on a little small street with small businesses, other entrepreneurs, and great foot traffic, but we're not retail. So it's really studio space for us. It's office space. We love being able to bring our clients in to present to them here. But we took a slower growth strategy. And part of that also was because when I worked for Lindsay, her clients were very high net luxury clients. When I went out on my own at 30, I did not have a high net luxury client. I had other 30-year-old clients who I was piecing things together in their living room. I was updating their bedrooms. I was doing a nursery. It was 1 room, 2 rooms at a time. And we slowly built the business to the place where I was able to do whole house projects. We could take on construction. And I hired a business coach. So probably in year, I'm trying to think, it would have been 2014, I believe, I did Tobi Fairley's mastermind program. And at the time, she was really focusing her business coaching on designers only, interior designers. And I had some friends that I had met through a show house, Lisa Mindy and Tracy Zeller, who are still dear friends of mine today. And they had worked with Tobi as a coach. They said, she's really transformed the way we're doing business. And I knew that what I was lacking as a business owner was that business structure. The creative part, I didn't need training in that. I knew how to do a design plan. I knew how to do CAD. I knew how to do a floor plan. I knew how to pull fabrics. That is ingrained. You either have that aesthetic or you don't as a creative. But I did not know how to grow a business, how to structure a design business. So I joined her mastermind program for a year. And I learned so much by being able to come together with designers from all over the country that we have similar problems, no matter where our businesses are located or what size town we're in. We're all dealing with similar issues in growing and servicing our clients. And so she really gave me the confidence to create a business structure that was profit-based. And I don't think I had that mindset before I was introduced to her business coaching or to these other designers who've become an amazing network that I can call on now with questions and for help if I run into something where I'm stuck. They're just an amazing resource to have. But she really, at the time, was preaching a flat fee model for design fees and a markup on the procurement end of a project. And no one in Greensboro, North Carolina was charging a flat fee for a design project. Everyone was working on an hourly basis, or they were just charging markup.
Right.
And it was very much an antiquated system of business.
It wasn't one that was going to work. You know, it's so interesting. Tobi and I were just recently both part of the My Dome in 19 Hours.
Yes.
A week or so ago, and super smart lady. A couple of comments on what you made. Of course, I'm a business coach, so I think coaching is very important. I have my own coach. I've always had a coach.
Yes.
As fast as I could find one and get one that I thought could take me where I needed to go for the things that I needed to learn, I have one. And I've had more than one coach. So sometimes I'll have a coach for a specific thing that I'm working on.
Absolutely.
I had one coach that I worked with for 5 years. I'm with another coach now who can get me to the next place faster than I could get there by myself. Because we all know what we know, but we don't know it all.
Absolutely. Right? And I could not agree more with that.
Yeah. And then like you were talking about being in a mastermind with Tobi. So I have my Designers Inner Circle, which is my mastermind. And it is really amazing because especially in this time of COVID, right? We're all in there and we're almost meeting every week right now.
Right.
Where normally we might meet a little bit more spread out, and it's across the country. And so I'm able to connect these designers. They're seeing that they're not alone. They're able to share their challenges. They are strategizing together on what to do and how to do it. And that they talk about the mastermind, what it really is. It's a bigger idea set than any one person could have alone. You take 2 people, it's from the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich. It's called a mastermind alliance. You take 2 people, you put them together, and it creates what's called this third mind, which is the mastermind. Because it's like that iron sharpens iron. 2 people working together, and you can come up with something bigger and better than maybe what either of you could do. And so I'm in my own mastermind where I am a member, and then I have a mastermind. So I just want to say
the value of that
is so valuable. It really is. Why would we do anything by ourselves? I mean, look at sports, look at anything. Everybody has somebody that's moving them forward. And in a time like what we're in right now with COVID, it can really make us feel so very alone.
Absolutely.
And I would recommend now is the time to get a mentor, to get a coach, to find a mastermind, to get involved in a group of other people that can help strengthen what you're doing and where you're going and how to get there. because I think the ones of us that try to stay back and hang out alone and do it alone with our own grit, I think we're going to struggle. I don't
They're
think
really making it harder on
we're
themselves.
making it harder.
Yes, yes. So I couldn't agree more. And I do think I've had several coaches over the years. It's something I enjoy investing in. I enjoy investing in self-improvement and ways to expand my knowledge that, like you said, I know what I know, but I don't know everything.
Right.
And so what I also find invaluable are the relationships, again, with these designers in the group. I was only a member of her mastermind for 1 year, and it was 6 years ago, but I still
It still made an impact on where you are today.
It did, and I'm still in constant communication with the other members of that group. So I have made lasting friendships. Just last week, I was on Rachel Cannon's podcast. She is a dear friend of mine that I met through that group. We've traveled together. We've been to markets together. We can call each other with business problems and say, hey, have you ever had this happen? What did you do in this situation? Oh, I'm looking for this brass bar stool. Do you know where this was sourced from? It's just having a network of knowledge in all aspects that as entrepreneurs, we need.
Absolutely.
We need those people to call on. So, it also expanded my viewpoint. I grew up in a small town. I did not have a business degree. So for me to learn a business model that was not being practiced in my area was really important. And it was a big risk for me to take as a business owner. I remember the first few times I said, hey, I'm going to do a flat fee, and this is what the scope of work is, and this is what I'm going to charge. And it was such a big number compared to saying my hourly rate is $150. Right. People just looked at me like I was crazy, and they couldn't wrap their head around what that meant. But then once I explained it and I said, this allows you to plan from the beginning of a project for what you're investing in the design portion, and then what you're investing in your furnishings budget, you don't have surprises. You're not getting a big bill at the end of the project that is hours and hours of work that you didn't know was happening behind the scenes.
Or asking you, can you work faster? Let's just stop this. I'm done. I'll do it the rest myself. I mean, I see a lot of that happening when we do that hourly.
I just find that it has built trust with my clients that has become really important because they know upfront exactly what I'm charging, exactly what it's going to cost them out of pocket. And I do run a very transparent business model, and it makes me feel comfortable because I know I'm not taking advantage of anyone. I am being completely clear about what it costs me to run a business and that I'm a business owner. This is not a hobby. I have to pay bills. I have to pay salaries. I have to pay overhead. And this is what I have to charge in order to do that. So I now feel very confident in being able to communicate my value to my clients and what they're getting with that fee.
Yeah, I love a good flat fee. I'm not going to say I love all flat fees. I love a well thought out flat fee. And I absolutely recommend that if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you can lose your entire business with one bad
Absolutely. And you have to track your profitability. You have to track your hours and constantly tweak it to make sure
it doesn't mean that
you're
it's
profitable.
One rate and you get to take your hands off and move on. It's still a very monitored way of doing work.
Absolutely.
But I love it because I think it, like even in my business, I don't do hourly work. Like you can't, in most cases, I do have a special right now during COVID to just book with me for 30 minutes.
Sure.
Outside of that, I normally require a year to work with me. Like I don't do hourly work. I do flat rates because that's how I can really serve their socks off. I know these things are going to take time. Just like you can't go in and transform a room in 2 days. We're not HGTV, not at the level that they really want it transformed. We're not talking about just slapping up some paint and throwing up a couple of pictures from Home Goods. We're talking about really doing the room. You can't do that in a couple of days. That is a process. And the same way I see your business, for me to come in and help you design your business and create that really lasting transformation, it takes time.
It's an investment.
It's an investment. I'm all about a good and well thought out flat fee. All right, so let me ask you this. You mentioned High Point Market and other markets quite a few times. I want to jump in and talk about what you love about Market And then I know that you have some exciting news that came out of all of your going to market and seeing market. So tell me a little bit about what you look to get out of market, because you've already said, and I love this because I want all of our designers, maybe some haven't built it into their budget to go to a market near them. Not everybody can go to High Point, but maybe they live in another area of the country. They can go to one of the ones close to them to get started. But just the inspiration, just the idea of what could be, getting to know those product lines, understanding what is available makes you a better designer overall.
Absolutely. And I think as designers, we have to have a hunger for learning and constantly reinventing ourselves and constantly educating ourselves about the newest products, the newest fabrics, what is coming to the marketplace that we haven't seen before. We don't want to create formula rooms. We want to bring new and exciting, and we are the people pushing the boundaries for our clients. So I've been so lucky growing up 30 minutes from High Point that I've always been able to go. So I guess 2005 was the first time I went to High Point Furniture Market, and I've been to every single market since then. So I guess that's 30 markets.
Wow.
In the last 15 years. And I'm really sad. They just announced today that they've canceled market for the spring.
June?
They canceled the June date.
You know what? I hadn't heard that, and I was bummed. I was supposed to speak at market, and that was when we did the 19 hours with my DOMA.
Yes.
Kind of bring the High Point training to go ahead and give that out. And I really wondered if June would continue.
I know. I
think
hate
it's probably a little early, and I'm excited that they've made a good choice for the overall health of everybody, but it saddens me that we are having to make those kinds of decisions because
absolutely.
I love going to market.
Yes. And I think the sourcing that you're able to do at a market is just as important as being face to face with the manufacturers, with your reps, creating that relationship. I tend to only buy from my direct accounts. I've worked a long time to build direct relationships with manufacturers and offer my clients dealer pricing structures from who I'm able to buy from. So to me, being able to see the pieces in person, see the scale of the chairs, sit in it, what's the pitch of the back? These are questions that our clients are asking us. They want to know that what they're purchasing is comfortable, that it's good quality, that the finish is going to be good quality. You need to see these things in person. And so I cannot stress enough that if a designer can't get to High Point, go to Atlanta, go to Dallas, go to Las Vegas, wherever they can go, New York, and see as much as you can see in person. It just expands your library of knowledge so much. And it also builds your relationships so that when something happens or you need something in a rush from a manufacturer, you can call your rep and they know exactly who you are. They have a face with your name, and they're much more willing to work with you and develop that relationship as a dealer and as a designer to meet your needs. So it's just invaluable relationship building as much as it is sourcing to me. And through that experience, last year I was able to be a style spotter for High Point Market, which was a lot of fun. And I felt like I kind of went back to the hat of product editor again for those two markets because we were trend forecasting and we were having to see all the products and look at what we felt was the newest and the freshest and the on trend items. And so I go to market for that reason as well. What is coming up in the next 6 to 12 months that we haven't seen yet? So I'm always looking to be ahead of the curve on those trends in the home furnishings marketplace. But through these experiences, I was introduced to a company in Greensboro. They're actually based in Greensboro, and a family who has built an incredible business called Thompson Traders. And the Thompson family, this business was created by the mom, Alejandra, who is absolutely amazing. I am such a big fan of female-owned businesses and female-driven aesthetics. So we just instantly connected. We actually first worked together. We bought a house about 5 years ago and partnered with Domino Magazine on a renovation project. Thompson Traders came in and worked with me on 2 custom pieces for that renovation project, a custom vanity in our powder room and a beautiful custom hood for our kitchen. They really specialize in metalwork, and most of their pieces are made in Mexico. They're made of copper, but you can have them finished in antique nickel, burnished nickel, brass. They have a wide range of metal finishes that their copper can be finished in. So we've worked together on custom projects for the last 4 or 5 years. I've put their beautiful hoods in several client projects, and we've custom designed multiple pieces together. And so they approached me about a year and a half ago about creating a licensed collection with them. It is going to launch this summer. We've created a collection of kitchen and bath items. So there's a tub, a bar sink, a apron front kitchen sink, a hood, and a vanity. So freestanding vanity. And they're nickel and brass in design. They were inspired by a trip that my family actually made to Mexico about a year ago. We rented a home in Tulum, and every wall of the house was round. It was all made of plaster, and there were no corners or edges. The stairwell was round. The kitchen island was oval. Every single
Wow.
There were no corners. So it was so inspiring to me that this entire home could be crafted in this really soft, feminine, curving design. And so I kept thinking, how can I translate this into metal? Because bathrooms and kitchens are such hard spaces.
Yeah, very linear.
Very linear. And I do have a more feminine aesthetic. So how can I create this softness and this feminine feel in a kitchen or a bathroom? And so every piece in the collection is rounded. The hood is actually completely oval. And the vanity sink is all rounded curves. So it's really unique. It's something that I haven't seen in the marketplace, and I'm really excited to introduce because I think that it's something people are going to really respond to as fresh and new, something they can't find anywhere else. So.
I love that. I met the Thompson family for the first time at Fall Market of 19. And they had a dinner at their home for some of the designers, and I was able to go to that. That is one of the most gracious families I have ever met. I literally would have almost felt like I was the only one there. They made me feel so special. I mean, you were there. There were like, yes, what, 30, 40 people there?
Probably. Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. And I felt special being there. And Alejandra came up. She made sure she introduced me. She talked to me. She put her arm around me. She thanked me for coming so that they could like serve my socks off.
Yes.
At that dinner. And I think that's one of the reasons I fell in love with their company. And look, I'm a coach. I'm not actively designing. I'm not going to buy their thing. I might buy them for my own home, but I'm not going to be like a long-term, sales producer for them. That's just not my role. It didn't matter to her.
They are just the warmest, most genuine family. And, ironically, our children are in a Spanish immersion school. So my children are bilingual, and they have been surrounded their entire lives by teachers who had that same attitude. I mean, it's just a cultural difference. And their teachers are so loving and open and demonstrative. And so I already had that experience in my life. And then to meet the Thompson family, it was like such a perfect fit for me.
Because your children were there, and they and their families were offering that same exuberance. It was it was just such a warmth and a giving that you cannot even hardly. I feel like we can sit and articulate all day, but I don't even know that I could express to somebody how they make you feel.
Yes, until you have met them, it really is hard to explain. And they are just so giving, and they're giving to our community in Greensboro. They're constantly giving back. They're constantly involved in charitable organizations. they just align with the same values that my business aligns with. And so it has been such a rewarding partnership, whether we ever sell anything.
I'm sure you will, but
it's
still.
just been really a beautiful process to create something with them and know that we both have the same goals of service to others. And how can we serve people through our businesses? And so it just was a perfect fit for my first step into licensing and doing product design. And I'm really excited for everyone to see it. And I'm excited to help promote their business and their family.
I love that. I'll make sure I have a link to their site and everything at the bottom, but in the show notes, but I really want people to check them out. They are a great company. So let me ask you this. We've kind of touched on it lightly, but let's just talk for just a minute about, we are in the time of COVID-19. And so your launch has been pushed back a little bit. So that's one change. Market is no longer happening. That's a second change. Spring market. What are some other disruptions or changes that you have made, if at all, in your business right now to adapt to what's happening?
My junior designer and I are working alternating days in our studio. So we're not here together right now. Coming in one day, she's coming in the next. My office manager's working from home because she has 2 small children and they're out of school, obviously. So, unfortunately, we had spent the last year really tightening our structure internally in our business. And so we were in a really good place with our systems and our processes to be able to quickly make changes and adapt and keep our projects going. So we had already moved to basically everything being online as far as our financials go and what my office manager needs to do from home. She can do all of that on her computer. And so we are still able in North Carolina to do construction as essential business. We are still making site visits. We had masks made out of our fabric memos. Our seamstress, made us some really cute masks that we've handed out to our clients, and we're taking on our site visits, and we're being very careful. We're not going into anyone's homes right now. So it has put a pause on our furnishings projects, and of course all of our manufacturers are shut down, so it's definitely extending the project timelines.
That supply chain is definitely a struggle for all of us, but the construction side, I would say almost the design piece is still allowed to keep going.
Absolutely. And so that's just what we're focusing on right now. We have a couple furnishings projects that are kind of just in hold until things start moving again, and we can process those through, but we're continuing to work on our construction projects. We have 3 construction projects going on right now, whole houses, and we're continuing to make site visits and spec materials, and our suppliers are being wonderful about getting really creative on mailing us samples, dropping sample boards off at the door. We're Cloroxing them, bringing them in. We're hand delivering them to clients. So we're just doing what we can and continuing to move forward in a new normal. We have been really lucky to be in a position where we had that construction work to keep us going, to be honest. So we were in a good place.
Have you had to pivot at all with any of your offerings, or you had enough in the pipeline that you didn't really need to pivot and change up a product offering?
Well, we did. So we sent out a newsletter probably in the first week of the stay-at-home order in North Carolina, and we typically don't do hourly work. We typically only take on full-scale projects, or we do a designer for a day scope of work that is kind of like a fixed fee and a fixed number of hours where we'll come in and do consultation. But we did lower our minimum, and so we're not charging minimums right now for furnishings budgets or design fees, and we're taking on some hourly work to kind of fill those gaps between our larger projects.
That's so similar to what I'm doing with 30-minute, like if you want me to look at your financials or help figure out what your runway is, how long or you just have any business question, I'm doing the 30-minute, where in the past I wouldn't do that.
Right. And we have to be willing to adapt, like you said, and to offer some different services, because we are doing Zoom calls with clients. And so we can do online consultations with people. And we did a little redo of a lake house for a client who decided they were going to do a little kitchen update and update some bathrooms in this time frame for the summer. And we just spec'd everything through sources that they could access, and they're implementing it themselves. But we were able to turn the design around in a week for them, and they have everything they need to have their contractor implement it. So we are doing some smaller things like that. And I think what I'm looking at right now is the reality that kids are most likely going to be home until the fall at the earliest. And so with that, I've always just had part-time childcare because my kids are old enough to be in school all day. How am I going to balance my work hours with them being at home more? And so my husband and I are having that discussion right now. Am I going to work 3 days a week full time, and then I'm going to work from home 2 days a week? What does this look like for our family? I do feel like they need me more right now than they have in the last few months or years. So I'm going to make some changes as well, probably where I'm taking on a smaller pipeline of work for the next few months. And that's something we're just going to have to look at as a business.
I think that's one of the things that I started mentioning back probably in March, was when we really started seeing that this was going to be more than a 2-week,
right,
chill at home for 2 weeks. And it started becoming a bigger thing, and something we've never had before. I know I started encouraging my clients and those that I was speaking to make a 4-week plan, an 8-week plan, and a 12-week plan, because this could keep going.
right.
And the choices that we might make if we were out of work for 4 weeks, or if work was disrupted or changed or different, could be very different than if we've got to maintain this for 12. And then I started kind of raising the flag that you do understand, everybody, when this turns back on, we are right at summer. And we already have a change in the way many of us do business with children or with other needs during the summer. And so, and for many of us, are in the industry, those are really not normally our heaviest months. Our heaviest months are usually like March, April, May, and then summer comes in and kids are home and projects, they might be going, but it's not literally the most profitable 3 months for a lot of firms.
Sure.
And then it kicks back up in the fall. And so we're going to we lost some of March and some of April, perhaps some of May. And if we open back up, we're kicked out right in the middle of the summer. And so we have to think about that and what that might look like. One of the things I encourage everybody to do, I have it on my freebies page, is go get your cash position analysis. Go out and figure out, how much cash do you have? What is your runway? How long is it going to last you? What is it that you have? And then the other thing that I want to encourage everybody to do, especially with what you just said, is we all need to know our minimums to be in business. It's not just your maximums. What are your minimums? What is the minimum that you need to do to keep your family going, to keep your business going? Whether it's in a time of a disruption or in a time of, I need to be with my kids. Let's be honest, for many of us, our kids are healthy and whole and they're home, but they are feeling the lack of being with their friends. They are feeling the disruption to their life. They are feeling the loss of school, even if they hated school. They're having to process this just like we do. And it's easy, if we're not careful, to be so focused on doing our work and keeping everything going and not focused on maintaining the emotional and mental well-being of our families.
Absolutely.
And so that, I think, has been a big shift for many of us. Those things had just been kind of humming along, and we're now starting to see the longer this lasts, the bigger the impact. My youngest is a senior in college, and he is having to work through the fact that he had just started spring break. They shut everything down. He didn't get to say goodbye to his friends. It's like they didn't know it was their last time together.
Right, yeah.
And for many of them, they're seniors and they live around the country, not just around the state. He will probably not see them again. There's no graduation ceremony. There's no end to these things that we would normally think of. And he's processing, like many are, they're processing,
That's
and trying to make sure that we're standing in the gap for them and that we are accessible to what they need and even just aware that they might need that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because it's not a norm.
It's not. And so, I think I've made the choice that right now I do have a child who's high risk. And so we're having to be more careful with her. there is a little more fear in our family than others. And while my clients are very important, my family's important too. And
Right.
so we are talking a lot in our office with my junior designer, how she can support me to be able to have that time with them right now. This is just the phase of life that we're in. And that is constantly changing when you are a mom running a business.
So one of the things that I see in all that, and I think this is where you're perfectly poised, Kara, is this is a time where leadership really shows up, where leadership really is showing and leading. I know a couple of my designers in my elite program, one of the things that we've talked about with them is kind of what you're doing is how much more can we educate and delegate to those that are working under us? How much more can we educate and empower them? Because many of them are in a different position than maybe the lead designer is, right, or the principal, and they can take on more. They're now ready. And this environment and disruption has almost fast forwarded maybe a delegation process that was in the works. How can we make that happen quicker? What can we do?
Right.
They may have in some cases more capacity than the senior designer, so the principal. So now how do we put the principal in more of an oversight role, right? Move them a little bit higher up instead of the technician role. So it's almost like this is moving you even a little, not that we're saying we're taking away the design, but it's moving you up to what is the most important role that Kara needs to play in the business to sustain it. And now how do we take anything that was on your list that doesn't fall into that most important category and delegate it down to someone else? And Absolutely. For some designers, it could actually even create a new job opportunity. I think that's exciting. It doesn't mean that we all are letting everybody go. It may be that we're creating even a part-time support position to take on some of those things. I know I'm looking at hiring somebody right now in the middle of COVID because I am taking some things off my plate to get me even so that I can serve more and faster. And that means there's some things that have to go for me to do that.
Right. And so I think, that's where you look at the positives of a situation like this. You're learning to adapt, you're learning to pivot, you're giving people more support and the ability to take things on their plates that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. And like we talked earlier, long term, this could be a great thing for our business. So it's setting us up for a strategy of growth when things pick back up we're ready to meet more demand. I feel actually amazingly lucky and positive about where my business is right now. I have got really good projects. I've got really great clients, and we're going to be fine through this year. The first thing that my office manager and I did was sit down and create a budget for the entire year.
Yep.
And what does this look like for us? What's our cash flow? What is coming in design fees? What can we say no to?
What can we keep doing? What do we have to say no to?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I've even asked my people that have created a budget at the beginning of the year, because if they've been following me and I pounded it in their brain enough, they probably created one in January. But we absolutely have to go back now and create a transition financial plan. Yeah, that transitional budget plan, because things have shifted and changed. You and I made the comment even before I think we came on the air. It may, for some design firms, they're feeling the squeeze now based on the type of projects they had and the pipeline they had.
Right.
There are some that are going to feel it over the next 3 months. There are some that may not feel it for 9 months to a year based on their projects. So I think there's going to be a rolling impact for the full economy and for even each industry independent.
Absolutely.
And so constantly keeping our eyes on what can I do, what can I tweak, what can I change is going to be super important. But I want to go back to kind of the way that you started the whole thing. I do believe that if we have our hearts and our minds open to it, what I do believe that this disruption is teaching us is about relationship, because we are caring more about how our clients feel. Not that we didn't care, but we were so busy with the busyness of the work. But now we really care about how they feel through this. We're caring about how our families feel. We're really getting more in tune with how our suppliers are going to be feeling. I mean, we better have some grace and mercy as the supply chain opens back up, right? We can't go in there all demanding that we didn't get what we wanted and you promised it was going to be that. We have got to show grace and mercy to each other. Absolutely. And then I think, in addition, the way that we lead our teams and lead our firms just shows that what's going to come out of this is the ones with the good, strong, caring, supportive relationships are going to be the businesses that survive. But the ones that are very one-off, by ourselves, I'm out to get mine, they're going to struggle because they're going to be on an island by themselves. So now's the time to get that relationship fixed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. One thing I've decided to do in the extra time I have right now, when I can't see my clients, is I'm writing handwritten letters to all of them. So everyone that I've worked with within like the last 12 to 18 months, I'm just sending them a note, just saying, I'm thinking of you. I hope your family's safe. I hope you're healthy. This is a strange time for us. I just want you to know how grateful I am for our relationship, our work together, and I'm thinking of you. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not wanting anything. They're just on my heart. And I feel like it's the time where we have to reach out to other people and share that with the people that are important to us.
One of my coaching clients sent me a mask. She's like, I love you and I care about you. And she mailed me a mask. I mean, that's just such a kindness. And every time I look at it, whether I'm sitting in my house or not, it makes my heart smile. But she just thought she didn't ask me for anything. She just sent me a mask, right? I sent out cards. People have sent me cards. And it's just that time to connect. And I think if anything, we should, number one, realizing how interconnected we are. I think in some ways we didn't realize how interconnected we all were. And when we start seeing breaks in supply chains and breaks in here, and something happened in this country that impacts my business, we're starting to see maybe interweb connections that we didn't know existed. And so the best we can do is strengthen the ones that are good to strengthen and hold on to those. So Kara, as we wrap up today, tell everybody where they can find you. Your Instagram, your website.
You can find me on Instagram at Kara Cox Interiors, on Facebook business page, Kara Cox Interiors, and my website is karacoxinteriors.com. So it's pretty easy.
That's good. That's good. Well, we can all find you. Thank you so much, Kara, for joining us and sharing some of your story and how you were inspired to get to where you are. That inspires us. And thank you also for mentioning Thompson Traders and some of the other key relationships that you have built.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I feel like when we can get together, I just need to come to Greensboro and we just need to have a cup of coffee and sit and chat.
I know. Absolutely. I would love to connect in person sometime soon. And hopefully it's sooner than later for all of us to get to be together again.
I know. I think, it's one of the things I can say out of all of this is I've been more aware of what was actually a blessing that maybe I didn't recognize. I took it for granted. I think many of us could look at the ability to meet together without fear was something that we kind of took for granted until we can't have it. That ability to hug a parent instead of, like you said, sitting 6 feet away in a garage, we took that for granted. And so I think I hope we learned the lesson. What are our blessings and recognizing them so that we can appreciate them more after COVID. I always say we're going to have a before COVID and an after COVID.
I hope so. I hope there's an after and I hope it's soon.
I hope it's quick too. Well, you have a beautiful day and thank you so much for sharing and inspiring us.
Thank you.
I want to just take a minute and mention Kara talked about the importance of some of the coaching that she has had in her past and even maybe getting today. And I just want to encourage you to check out some coaches, find out who you can work with. Not every coach is for every person, but I can tell you this. The coaching that I offer is going to be unique. It is going to be tailored to you and your business, and it is going to be done in the most supportive way. And so if you're interested in that, you can go to my scarletthreadconsulting.com website. You can look at my services and offerings and sign up to have a conversation, a discovery call. I'd love to talk to you to see what you need, share with you what I offer, and if there's a match, then maybe we can work together. Just whatever you do, do it with intention, do it with forethought, because as I always share with you, profit doesn't happen by accident.